Is gray hair human rust? Is gray hair human rust? This is a follow-up to JustAQuestion.org's video, Are We Segregated? The point of that video is that society, technology, and, unfortunately, the church have segregated the graying with their wisdom from the young with their strength and enthusiasm. The Apostle Paul was in his 60s, 20-plus years past first-century life expectancy, when he wrote these words to Timothy. Listen to what he wrote. Let no one look down on your youthfulness. Older Paul was mentoring younger Timothy. I remember when I started in the ministry, I was often the youngest guy in the room. Now I can be the oldest guy in the room. Does youthfulness disqualify someone from ministry? No. Does gray hair disqualify someone from ministry? No. Listen to Proverbs 20:29. The glory of young men is their strength, and the honor of old men is their gray hair. Don't look down on those who are young and rust-free. Don't. The French heroine Joan of Arc made her mark on history as a teenager before she was burned at the stake at age 19. And much closer to today, Bill Gates and Paul Allen were about 20 years old when they founded Microsoft. And many recent tech creations were founded by millennials when they were young. Facebook, Tumblr, Pinterest, Mashable, Instagram, Airbnb, Lyft, Firefox, Groupon, Snapchat, and even WordPress. So don't look down on the young. And don't look down on yourself if you are young. But don't look down on those who are turning gray either, who are getting some rust. Pope John Paul II was close to 60 when he became Pope, and he learned Spanish, his 8th language, after he became Pope. And he was Time Magazine's Man of the Year when he was 74. And Chuck Swindoll, born in 1934, is a famous Christian preacher and author. His radio ministry is broadcast around the world in 15 languages. He's senior pastor of a large church that he founded in 1998, when he was already at normal American retirement age. And as of the date of this recording, Chuck is in his mid-80s and still going strong. And the Apostle Paul was still so effective when he was older, so effective in his ministry, that the Roman Empire executed him when he was close to 70. And the Apostle John was effective long after the other apostles were martyred. John wrote the last book in the New Testament, Revelation, when he was in his 90s. So don't look down at the graying, and don't look down on yourself if you've got some human rust. I make these videos for all ages, but I'm especially interested in young Timothys. I frequently talk with Gen Z and millennials about spiritual things. And you know what? They're always eager to talk with me at my age. But the church has isolated the young from the graying. That's sad. And some modern leaders are also writing off my generation while unsuccessfully trying to connect with the young. They try to connect with the young by dressing like them, talking like them, and dumbing down messages to be little more than short attention span pep talks accompanied by bad rock music. That's insulting to Gen Z and millennials. It's almost as if Uncle Drew were trying to masquerade as Kyrie Irving. If you don't get that, Google it. It's fun. You see, young people want authenticity, and so do the graying. Skeptics don't want to put on show any more than I do. And seekers need representatives of Christ to be real, to be Christ-like. But the church today often embraces worldly marketing schemes to reach you skeptics and seekers. but it most often drives the young away. Some call these churches seeker-sensitive, but in many cases, they are seeker-toxic. You may not like me saying that, but it happens to be true. You see, the first century church was attractive to the world because it was not trying to be like the world. It was trying to be like Christ, and that made it attractive to the world. And it's not that Gen Z and millennials aren't looking for God. They are. But too often, they don't find him in today's church. They actually describe some of today's services as no more than an event where the guest of honor was a no-show. You see, the church and all believers should be authentic, pursuing and following the authentic Jesus, trying to reach the world by being like Christ, not by trying to be like the world. Skeptic, seeker, seek the real God while you are young. Don't waste the strength and enthusiasm of your youth. Harness it. And don't wait until you're old and then cram for finals. Come to Christ now. And believer, if you're young, heed Paul's words to young Timothy. Let no one look down on your youthfulness, but rather in speech, conduct, love, faith, and purity, show yourself an example of those who believe. I can tell you, you will never regret doing life God's way, especially if you start young. But what if you aren't young? Then face the reality. You can't change your age or your past. So older skeptic, seeker, come to Christ now. Then use your days, months, and years wisely. Use them to change your world for Jesus Christ. And believer, are you at a point where you're about to round third and head home? Then don't coast home. Sprint home and take the catcher out as you do. Make a difference. There's a story about the teenage Joan of Arc, and it might be fictional. I don't know. It's said that she asked her commander to assign men, soldiers, to follow her over the wall to take an enemy city. He said it was very dangerous, but he would order them to follow her. But her commander warned her that he couldn't guarantee that they would go. So he asked Joan, "What will you do when you're going over the wall and you look back and there's no one there?" She answered, "I won't be looking back." I love that. Skeptic, seeker, believer, don't hesitate. Go over the spiritual wall. And don't be looking back. You're watching this video, so you can see that I have some gray hair. With me, what you see is what you get. If gray hair is human rust, then I've got some. But I have a lot of ministry plans for the coming years, and I'm planning on burning out in the distant future, not rusting out. You shouldn't rust out either. Change your future. Change your eternity. Change your world. I'm John Morris. I'll see you on the next Just a Question.